my next speech is on tortoises, turtles, and terrapins. You guys might think this is kind of a silly thing to even talk about, but obviously turtles, you guys probably have all had one at some point in your life. If you haven't, maybe a kid. No, really? Okay, well, it's one of the top 5 animals owned, and everybody just assumes that turtles are like incredibly, low maintenance animals. You just stick them in a tank, you give them some lettuce and a water bowl, and you forget about them, right? They don't do much, they don't need much, nobody needs them, right? Okay. When you think of tortoises, there's a lot of misconceptions about them. A lot of people will feed them lettuce, or sometimes if they have a box turtle or even a water turtle, they'll feed them cat food. First, I will tell you that they're absolutely not low maintenance animals. They're one of the most high maintenance animals you could possibly ever own. And we have a tortoise here, and Joshua is going to pass him around in his little bucket. Unless you've recently washed your hands, just don't touch him. You can look at him, but they get sick really easy. First, are you aware that pet turtle or tortoise can put you in the hospital, and not by biting you? There are over 74 cases of salmonella due to reptiles, and to include tortoises, but not to include amphibians, reported every year annually in the United States. And it also explains my next fun fact, which it is illegal to own a turtle or tortoise unless for educational purposes. In the United States, it's under 4 inches large because the CDC cannot keep you from licking your tortoise, but they can keep you from putting it in your mouth. To clear up some confusion, they cannot live on cat food or lettuce. Cat food is much too high in protein. It's made of large animal byproducts. And if you have a box turtle, which is an omnivore, or a water turtle, the biggest thing they're going to eat is a goldfish. And that's for a water turtle. A box turtle, the biggest thing is going to be like an earthworm or an insect of some sort. They're not going to eat up a ground-up horse, a ground-up chicken, a ground-up pig, or a ground-up cow. Obviously, that will definitely make them sick. Tortoises specifically are herbivores, and you cannot feed them cat food or any other kind of protein that's not plant protein, and that doesn't mean they won't eat it. If you put carp in front of that tortoise, he'll eat it. If you put cat food in front of that tortoise, he'll eat it. If you leave your finger in front of that tortoise long enough, he will eat it, okay? They will eat anything you put in front of them, but that doesn't mean it's good for them. You can feed your children French fries all day long, but do you think they could live on French fries?
Yes.
Okay, not for very long. Okay. One of the things with these guys is that a lot of foods, especially lettuce, will deplete their calcium. Iceberg lettuce is okay for, I guess if you need to quickly hydrate your turtle, you can give them some iceberg lettuce, but you're going to have to put some calcium powder on it. It actually will deplete their calcium, and these pictures I'm about to pass out, well, this one picture is going to show you what happens when you feed a tortoise lettuce.
You didn't do this yourself,
What?
Those pictures
This is
are
from
rescues.
These pictures that I'm going to pass, well, that picture specifically is from a rescue called Long Island Turtle and Tortoise Rescue. She has a website, and she has 10 pages with 9 photos on each page of sulcata tortoises, which is what this little guy is, that have been deformed due to their owners feeding their tortoises either cat food or lettuce. Because that is actually the biggest deal of what people normally feed their animals, unfortunately. And actually, I was watching, whenever I was back in Texas, I was watching a cartoon with my daughter, and on the cartoon, one of the characters was actually saying that that's what tortoises eat. So it's starting at a very young age, we're giving children misinformation, and it's turning tortoises into that. And you might think that looks cool, but here's an idea of what tortoises should look like. That is a 10-year-old. That is a 10-year-old tortoise that's been fed improperly, and that was my 10-year-old tortoise that had been fed properly for the last 9 years. He's 10 years old. For the first year, he wasn't fed properly. He was given to a rescue, and then I got him, and he was fed properly for the next 9 years.
That thing's huge.
Yes,
That's
and they
small.
start out. This little guy is 2 months old. We got him when he was the size of a 50-cent piece, and they start out that small. And that tortoise is only 10 years old, and he was almost 50 pounds. This is another problem with turtles and tortoises. Everybody thinks they're cute. They can keep them in a small container. A tortoise needs a square foot per every inch of its length. That little guy is 2 inches long. He needs 2 square feet of cage. If you get to a tortoise that's 24 inches long, such as the one that I have with my son in that picture, he's going to need 24 square feet, and that's a minimum. They get up to 240 pounds and can live over 80 years old. Yeah, So once you get one of these little guys from a pet store, which at a pet store will run you about $250, we got him for $50 offline. You have to take care of them and put them in your will, and you have to, usually you would need about an acre of land, which they're, full grown. And at 240 pounds, how are you gonna move that turtle around? If he wants to sit where he's sitting, you're not gonna move him. You're gonna need a forklift, okay? And if he needs to go to a vet, you're gonna need a forklift. People don't realize that when they get them. And even whenever you get a regular tortoise from the pet store, for instance, we have a 120-gallon tank for our red-tailed boa. It's 4 feet by 2 feet wide. That would house, at most, an 8-inch tortoise. Most of the tortoises you can buy at the pet store will get to 8 inches. That's about their max, but are you going to buy a 120-gallon tank to put it in? And the big problem with the tanks is that because they're enclosed and they're glass, they harbor bacteria. Tortoises are incredibly susceptible to bacterial infections, and if you keep them in an enclosed tank, they will die within the first 3 years of their life, typically. You have to have the tank open, and if you do keep them in a glass tank, it needs to be twice the size of their actual, for instance, if you had an 8-inch, if you kept them in that glass tank, you would need to actually keep it in bigger than 120 because it's glass.
So wouldn't the baby pool just be fine?
Yeah, actually, a lot of people in their house will keep them in like a kiddie pool. It needs to be, obviously it needs to be 6 inches above their substrate, which is the dirt. It needs to be, at most, 8 inches because you really want it to be aired out. The best thing to do is build something outside. The tortoises have to stay above 70 degrees at night, and they have to stay above 90 degrees during the day. That's why we have them in front of lights. You can't just put them in front of a regular light. They need UVB like people. They need D3 from the UVB, and the UVB light bulb has to be within 18 inches of their shell, or they get nothing from it. They have to be under it for 6 hours to the equivalent of 30 minutes sitting outside. So in addition to UVB, most UVBs don't produce heat. They need heat bulbs. When you add up a UVB and a heat bulb, you're spending at least $50 for their lighting. Usually it's up to $75 per bulb. In addition to that, in addition to their food, in addition to their lighting, they have to be on special substrates. Pine and cedar produce harmful chemicals that will kill a turtle if the heat is directly above it. Certain kinds of sand will impact a turtle's bowels, and then you have an emergency room visit. If you buy a turtle for $250 at a pet store, do you really want it to die in the next year or two? I mean, honestly, you buy something, you want it to be a pet. You want to keep it for a while. You don't want to have to go replace it if your kids get sad because their turtle disappeared. The biggest thing is if you buy a turtle, you really need to look into it because you cannot just keep them in a small aquarium. You can't just throw some lettuce in there. You have to give them lighting. You have to have proper substrates. They need water. Some of them need humidity. A lot of them can't eat certain foods. These guys, they can eat hay. They eat dandelions. They eat various weeds. They eat grass. They can eat blossoms and rose leaves. But if you start sticking lettuce in there, they're going to die. And basically, I just wanted to let you guys know that it's not just a pet that you can just buy, stick somewhere, and think that you don't have to take care of it or maintain it. This is going to be a lot more of a maintenance, task than buying a hamster or even a dog, honestly. And that's the conclusion of my second speech. Y'all can vote.